Hugh Freeze and Payton Thorne are not on the same page, but who's to blame? Let's drop it on.
You are now listening to the War Report. Drop.
Morning drop. You guys know the deal. It's Tuesday. Joining me as always is my guy Charli 5 from the barn. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on with Auburn football. No press conference this week to talk about. No Monday press conference, but we're going to jump back to that post-game press conference and get into the confusion that is Auburn football right now. I'm exasperated, Charli. Before we get into it, your thoughts, general thoughts on Saturday's game. I don't think anybody expected Auburn reasonably to win the game, but what did you see there? What were your high-level notes and your takeaways from this one?
I know it sounds crazy to think, but it does. I believe it when Hugh says he feels like we're making some progress. You're just still continuing to make, you're still continuing to make some of those like game killing decisions, and you're not able to make a lot of those momentum changing plays, whether it's dropping a pass in the end zone or not being able to, or running a route a little incorrectly, or, deciding to call an audible on 4th and short. When do you have the option? Do you not have the option? Do the other players know that you're going to call the audible and they know the option that you're changing it into? It's just a lot of that. And I think that's just part of a team that's, trying to find a way to win. And I was proud that the way they fought a little bit. I know Hugh felt like the fight could have been harder. But it's just tough, and that's a talented roster that can play bad and still beat you by 18 points. Yeah,
look, they were down a whole heap of points to Georgia to Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Found a way to come back and hold a lead in the second half of that game. Ultimately, they succumbed, but like I said, they had to rebound at home in Athens versus the Auburn Tigers, which they did. But most fans, I think, were just looking for signs of life, signs of moving things forward. Now, before we get into the comments after the game, quarterback obviously is going to be something that's going to be talked to death from now until the time that Auburn has another starting quarterback. But sure. They put their full weight behind Payton Thorne, and there was a scene during the game, Charli, with after that 4th and 1 with Hugh Freeze just reaming out Payton Thorne on the sideline. After the game, he tried to give his quarterback some grace here, but it felt like they really kind of dumbed down the offense to keep the ball out of the middle of the field and protect the football for Payton Thorne on Saturday. Like, what did you think about the game plan and how the quarterback position is causing them to alter this offense down to almost what seems like a rudimentary level of it?
Yeah, so it's funny. The Oklahoma game, we're mad because we're not being conservative enough. And then so we go really conservative, and, we're mad about that too. But ultimately, you got to win. And if you win, it makes everything better. But, yeah, they were definitely, it seemed like, trying to protect Payton from turning the ball over, which is
kind of works.
They didn't turn it over. I guess you got the turnover on downs. I don't know if that necessarily counts as a turnover, but and it was effective at times. You bogged down a little bit in the red zone, I think multiple times, but overall you were able to get some positive momentum. You just have some, you weren't able to make some of those big plays that you got to make to extend a drive. Offensive line was dinged up. So again, you're trying to protect. I think that's another thing they were trying to protect is they knew they've got some injuries there. Xavier Miller's just like he's got Band-Aids and duct tape holding him together right now. He really needs this week off because he's been playing good. But man, it's tough. But again, I still think you put more points on Georgia that you put on in Athens in quite a while. You were able to gain more than they give up. I guess, for the season. And then you were able to hold them under their average for the season. So overall, I feel like you're making some progress. I just like everybody else, I think you want it a little bit faster.
To add some context to how Auburn has done in Athens, since 2018, Auburn has given up an average of 484 yards of total offense to Georgia. They gave up 381 yards of offense on Saturday. They've managed only 249 yards per game in Athens since 2018. They had 330 yards of total offense. So it was better than it's been in quite some time in Athens. However, it did not result in a victory. After the game, Hugh Freeze was asked about that 4th and 1. Now, let's set the stage here. It's 21-10, I believe, at this point in the game. If you get this first down and you continue to drive and you put some points on the board, whether it's a field goal or a touchdown, you got a 1-score game.
And if I'm not mistaken, it's the first play of the 4th quarter. I think that's correct.
Correct. Yes, the first play of the 4th quarter. So in the 4th quarter, you have a chance to make it a 1-score game on the road. Here's what Hugh Freeze had to say about that 4th and 1.
Yeah, it was. The call was a dive left to Jarquez, and we didn't execute that play. No. Yeah, he absolutely didn't go with what we had called. You know, Payton's a thinker, and he knows football, and he decided to try to run some type of zone read there, and I think everybody was a little confused, but we definitely weren't on the same page there, and I should have used one of our timeouts there when I saw things were going awry, but that's something we've got to learn from, and again, we've got to coach better to where that's really not an option in that moment in time. That was a big drive, man. And we were moving the ball, and so we've got to talk through that one and make sure that doesn't happen.
So a couple things here. Number one, he says he wished he would have called a timeout. I think everybody wishes he would have called a timeout there. If your QB is being told to do one thing and it looks like he's doing something else, timeout.
Yeah, what's going on here?
Yeah, it's disappointing to have to waste a timeout in a tight game like that because
coming out of a quarter.
Yeah, it's really disappointing. But if it's what you got to do, it's what you got to do. I want to make a note, though. Last year, when asked, Payton Thorne said he was not allowed to change plays at the line.
Correct.
I'm wondering if this is why. What do you think about what Hugh had to say here before we get into Payton's comments, but about that call? As I understood it, and I may even misunderstood it at the time, the way the play looked, it looked like it was called and there was either an option to hand it or keep it. Hugh said, no, there's supposed to be a dive left and just hand it off, and that's it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you look at the way the blocks were set up, it was it was a dive left. They got the push. You leave the outside defender away from where you're running unblocked, so you got an extra blocker. That's where the hole was. Like, it was gaping, and for whatever reason, Payton decided to check into something that this is take this for what it's worth, okay? But at the barn, auburn.com, we got a member who said his brother played football at Liberty for Hugh and called him immediately after that play and says, there is no read on that play. He said, there is no read on that play. So I don't know what happened. Like that's not part of that play. That's not a check out of that play. Yeah. So I have no idea what just happened there. And you could see the confusion on Jarquez's face. If you watch it again, Payton's leaning over, seemingly telling him what to do here. Like, because whatever he's checking into, they don't seem to know what he's checking into. And after the play, Jarquez kind of throws his hands up like, I don't know. I don't know what we're doing here. And he said after the post game, I don't know why we didn't just run it right there. We should have just ran it right there. So there's a lot of confusion. And I'll say this, and this goes to what Hugh kind of speaks to what Hugh's saying. I think schematically there was probably, I bet you Payton could sit you down and tell you exactly why he did what he did. And I bet you it would make 1,000% sense. Like, you'd be like, okay, well, that makes total sense. I understand why you did that. But sometimes you don't, making the right decision in the wrong situation is still the wrong decision. Yeah. And right there, Auburn didn't need 7 yards. They needed one.
Yeah.
1 yard. And even if he could argue you and tell you that it's correct, and it could be correct on paper, the situation with the way the situation was playing out, it was the wrong decision because you only needed 1 yard and you had 1+ on the left side that you could have driven a Mack truck through. So it's confusing. And I think Hugh did the best he could to be as positive as he can and not be labeled as throwing his players under the bus. He even said at the end, it's on coaching to make sure that we're all on the same page and that's not an option. But it's, clearly to me, Payton went rogue there.
Yeah. Again, the only critique I have for Hugh in that situation is just call a timeout. If the look is not right, just call a timeout and get reset.
When he said when things started to go awry, I should have called a timeout. He knew something was up when Payton shifted Jarquez out of where he was to a new spot. And then he's talking to Jarquez. Like, that's the point where it's like, okay, something's not right here. This is not what we're doing. I agree. At that point in time, things look like they're starting to go awry. Call a timeout.
It's tough. It's tough. Maybe that fourth quarter looks a little bit differently if you get that first one. I will say this: if you're gonna go against your head coach in that situation, you better be right. Now, Payton saw it differently, and Next Round Live was able to capture a moment after the game where Payton was trying to explain what he saw. Here's what we got.
Well, we're running a run play. That had an option to throw it to, and the look that I got, we had a guy that I needed to handle and moved back out of his original position and ran the play. And I think it was number 11 came off the edge hard, and that's the guy I was reading. And I don't want to get into too much detail on that, I guess. I could tell you the whole thing, but I don't think so. I shouldn't.
We were running the wrong play, or you were running the wrong play. I listened to this over and over again to try to hear. I heard the words that were coming out of his mouth, but I was really trying to hear what he was saying here. So without maybe throwing himself under the bus and just saying, I audibled and I got it wrong. He said we were running the wrong play. What did you hear in that?
Well, a lot's being made about the last things he said, where he said something to the tune of, I could probably tell you the whole thing, but I probably shouldn't. I think that was the last things that he said. And some people are trying to make that out to be that, maybe that's him saying that he's admitting that Hugh's throwing him under the bus or putting the blame on him when he made the right call. And there's some people saying that that's what it means. But I think what it means is last week when he was on the Next Round, he was diagramming the last play where he threw the interception. And he basically boiled down to I explained the whole play out. I explained their defense out. And I basically said I would have made the same decision 10 times out of 10, which means I would be tricked 10 times out of 10. And I can't take credit for that. That came from Jake Crane. And I think he caught a lot of heat. He probably caught a lot of heat from that. And if you go in and you start saying the same thing where, I'm telling you why I made the decision and it was the right decision, it almost looks like he's trying to say the play doesn't work to me. I mean, that's to me, that's kind of the way I'm taking it. So like my reads tell me to do this and I threw an interception and I would have thrown an interception 10 times out of 10. My reads and my decisions and my rules and everything tell me this. And it ended up in a 4-yard loss on 4th and 1. And I think there's a little bit of that going on. And I could be wrong. I may be reading way too much into it.
Yeah, it's interesting, I think, listening to how the players are interpreting what's happening on the field. And, when this is happening at a high level, the quarterback is like an extension of the coach on the field. Mm-hmm. And that's not what you have here at Auburn so far through six games. It's hard for fans to watch. Again, nobody expected Auburn really to win the game, but DJ Durkin's defense has been keeping them in every single one of these losses. I've been taking so much heat from fans for just saying, like, look, they're playing well enough to win on defense. And
with a bunch of young guys.
Yeah, and because of the struggles on offense, people are hypercritical of big plays that are given up here and there, but ultimately, by the numbers, they're doing a more than serviceable job. Now, is discussion that we were having, Charli, I wanted you to weigh in on about the talent conversation.
Okay.
I feel pretty strongly, and this is a hill I'm going to die on, that the talent gap is not why Auburn is 2-4 right now. That's not. They've got enough talent. Maybe if you take Sans the quarterback position, like, to win games or at least be 500 right now, if not one game over 500. But it's a different conversation with offense and defense. On defense, I think that DJ Durkin is getting the most out of those guys for what he has, and it will only improve from there. On the offensive side, I'm not quite sure that we're getting the most out of that talent. What are your thoughts on both sides of the ball and whether Auburn's getting the most out of the talent?
So if you just look at statistics, you would think, if you looked at the statistics, it would show you, especially on offense, that Auburn is a vastly more improved offense.
Sure.
From a number standpoint. So clearly they're getting something out of the talent. But what's the difference? What's the difference in why the killer mistakes happen on one side and they don't seem to happen? You can't say they don't happen
as much, right?
As much. Or maybe they're not quite as impactful and in number as they are on offense. I'm with you. I do think that the roster's better, and I think you're getting results that would reflect that from a statistical standpoint. But maybe I don't. The thing is, I don't know why those numbers aren't yielding wins. That's what's hard, because if I told you to begin the year, if I would have gone through the box score of these 5 games, what would you say? And we didn't talk about turnovers. We just said this is the offensive output for these 5 games. This is the defensive output for these 5 games. Don't look at the score. Nothing about turnovers. What would you think our record would be? 4-2 at
4-2 at the worst. Yeah.
Yeah. And so something, and when he talks about youth and things like that, I think maybe some of that on offense is a little bit to do with it. And then obviously you have Payton and his decision-making in crunch time that seems to be the difference as well quite often.
Yeah, your margin for error is not great. And I've said this repeatedly since we've been doing a show. You don't get to stand still in this league. If while you're standing still, everybody else around you is getting better. Now, in our pick'em, I picked Texas A&M. I felt like Missouri. I thought they were frauds. I said that going in, and boy, did they get exposed by Texas A&M. Vanderbilt beat Alabama. They caught Alabama lacking. Holy crap, man! You saw Arkansas beat Tennessee. There were upsets all over the board this weekend and so far through 6 weeks of the season. And everybody seems to be taking advantage of that right now, but Auburn.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, I think, situation that Hugh Freeze has gotten himself in halfway through year 2. It's going to put a lot of pressure on the back half of this year to try to salvage something. Is there a bowl game in this team's future? Well, Missouri's it. I think if you don't win that game, you can just rule out a bowl game, right?
Yeah, I mean, you think about the next 3 games.
They can get Missouri. They can beat.
They could get Missouri. I think. Yeah. I honestly think if you're just looking at it from a statistical standpoint, I think the offense that you've gotten out of the last 2 games and a half can win you the next 3 games. I really do. I think if you can perform, because Georgia's defense and Oklahoma's defense, these next guys, I don't think are really in that ballpark. I could be wrong, but from a statistical standpoint, from a talent standpoint, Missouri can't hang with Oklahoma and Georgia on defense. Kentucky can play a little bit of defense, but they can't hang really either. And then you got Vanderbilt as well, who they did beat Alabama, but they gave up like 35, 40 points, something like that. So, look, you're right. The Missouri game to me is the key to getting to the ball game. This is the key to getting to a bowl game.
Yeah, and look, Vanderbilt took that team to overtime. You can absolutely beat Missouri. They're gettable. Kentucky's gettable. ULM obviously is gettable, and Vanderbilt with the Pavia the Giant Slayer. I don't even know. That might be the hardest one left on the schedule for all we know.
That dude looks like me playing quarterback, and he just deals. How does it work? How does he is not fast. He has no arm strength, but he just makes it happen. It's crazy, man.
Oh man. Charli, before we get out of here, as always, tell people where they can find you.
Absolutely. Find me on, you can find me at thebarnauburn.com. In there every single day. It's our new message board, all your team insights, recruiting insights. We put a little sneak preview of possibly looking at another commitment this weekend that we're working on. We'll see if that pans out. You can catch a little bit of the details there. It's $1 for your first month, $9.95 after that. And then you can find me at the Barn YouTube page, the Barn Auburn YouTube page. We got content going up every single day.
Guys, that's it for another morning drop brought to you by The Rogue Shop. Visit our friends at therogueshop.com and use code REPORT to get 15% off your order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, The Rogue Shop has you covered. This show is brought to you in part also by our friends over at Manscaped. Visit manscaped.com and use code REPORT to get 20% off your beard and balls bundle. We're sophisticated gentlemen in this world, Charli, and we don't use the same razor for our face that we do for our balls. It's not what sophisticated gentlemen do. Manscaped has you covered, though, with their Lawnmower 5.0 for your boys downstairs and the Beard Hedger for your chin music. So visit manscaped.com and use code REPORT to get 20% off plus free shipping. And after you got it all cleaned up, our friends at Joy Mode are going to help you have an extra good time. Visit tryjoymode.com. Imagine a supplement like your favorite greens packet that you put in 6 to 8 ounces of water 45 minutes before the boom boom, and you watch it happen. Now that you got freshly shaved balls, Joy Mode has you covered. So no matter how you choose to celebrate a win or commiserate a loss, Joy Mode thinks you should be having a good time. Try joymode.com. Use 20% off plus free shipping with code REPORT. That's 20% off plus free shipping with code REPORT. Guys, again, that's it for another morning drop. We'll be back at you guys tomorrow morning with even more Auburn content here in the bye week. We're signing off, and as always, War Eagle.